Okay, apologies for the delay, folks. I'm now back with Eric Roth, who's the music director for A New World. Thank you very much for being here, sir.
Thank you, Alex, for having me. I'm very pleased to be with you.
Thank you. I was just saying to you just before we came on stream there, we have communicated before, but we've never actually vocally spoken. So it's nice to be able to be able to connect finally. So that's great.
I agree.
In fact, really, I guess in small chance, it's possible that we would, like, because I know that you conduct A New World, and I did go to A New World, but I don't think you were there. Arnie was conducting that night. It was at the, here comes my terrible French pronunciation, it was the Palais Montcalm in Quebec City.
In Quebec.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But I don't think you were there that night. This was a couple of years back.
Yes, that was when we were splitting conducting duties more. Right. But I can't think of what I was doing that particular night, that particular year.
No.
But I do love the Palais Montcalm. I've performed there also. It's wonderful.
Beautiful
I love
venue.
Quebec.
That was the first time I'd been to Quebec City, and what a stunning city that is.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a magical place, right?
Absolutely. Well, we'll be able to talk about all the magical places you've been, because I know you've traveled for sure. But so we're here to talk about A New World, and I know that not only are you involved with A New World, you're also involved with Distant Worlds, and many people, many fans would have come to the concerts and experienced these incredible events. I am curious though to like if you could just take us back to like how this happened, how this began, because obviously the music of Final Fantasy is hugely recognized. How was A New World born? How did it come about?
I'd be happy to talk about that. When Distant Worlds had, I guess, sometime around the second album, we had coalesced around the idea that there was a lot of material that would suit itself to a smaller ensemble, right, to smaller forces, and that could be something really special in its own way. And so we eventually ended up with these two different preview performances in 2012. They were one was this wild lobby performance at the Rosemont Theater in the Chicago area for a Distant Worlds performance. Well, Matu-san was there. It was for anybody who happens to be tuning in who remembers that one. It was a crazy event. And there was that preview, and we also did this special event for Distant Worlds community members, right, also in the Chicago area in 2012. But then we did the launch in 2014 with the live recording, concert, premiere in London, and we were just off with that. And it's just this very different, very special experience that, I feel a lot of gratitude to be able to perform that music over and over and over all over the world. And it's been really special.
And as someone who's experienced, I've been to both Distant Worlds many times and New World. There is a very big difference between them. So when you go to Distant Worlds, where have I seen Distant Worlds? In Toronto at I think that's the Sony Centre there. And at the Royal Albert Hall, it's a very overwhelming, incredible, beautiful, emotional experience. Whereas with A New World, which is an intimate experience, it's a very, you're floating. It's a much smaller audience. It does have that intimacy, which is something that can't be done with a large orchestra. It's really quite special. It's a totally unique experience.
That's a wonderful way of putting it, Alex. Thank you. I agree with how you describe both of these things. I mean, to me, Distant Worlds feels huge, right? I mean, like the sensory experience, the whole thing is like it's lots and lots of information. But with A New World, it's like you can concentrate on every little detail of you
hear every instrument.
Much more, a much more delicate kind of thing. Yeah, and I think it's a tribute to the amazing variety and breadth of expression in Final Fantasy music. Is that there's so much for those really different experiences in that music. I just, it's something that I could gush about for a while.
Well, keep gushing. You're in the right. You're with the right crowd. I mean, yeah. I adore the music from Final Fantasy. In fact, I actually say that that's probably the number one thing that I love about the series. I remember growing up as a kid in the back of it's not, you don't see this anymore, but it was in the back of a PlayStation magazine. It was like a box set with the first 10 games, I think it was, and it was like $200, and I was 12, and $200 to me was just a ridiculous amount of money, and I was going to save up and I was going to buy it. And, this was from a magazine I bought 3 years before, and I still told myself I was going to buy it. And coming all this way, progressing with all these games, there's so many different styles of music. And as you said, some are absolutely more suited to a smaller ensemble. Because when you're at Distant Worlds, it is sometimes difficult to pick out specific instruments, but at a New World, you can hear every single instrument in unity. It's really it's breathtaking, really. It's quite the experience. And talking of the experience, I know that you're no stranger to doing live music. So how has the last 9 months been for you? Not being able to not, I can't I can't imagine how yourself and Arnie and many of the people who are involved, it must be quite killer. Not just from a business perspective, but from a soul perspective, right? You're a performer.
Yes. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Mostly I end up, look, there's been a lot of soul searching. I'm not going to lie with you. It's a huge part of my life is performing music with other people, trying to work together to achieve, this kind of joy that we can share. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's all of a sudden that's not anywhere to be seen, except in these little dribs and drabs, and so it's really dramatic. It feels very odd, and I have a lot of faith and hope for a beautiful future of great concerts together. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's what we're looking forward to. We're making plans. That's where we're at, is that we feel incredible gratitude for the people who look to this future with us. And I know that there are a lot of people who do. And the way that I know this is because they just bought all these tickets for a Royal Albert Hall concert.
Yeah, I know, I saw.
Just for example, mm-hmm. That people are holding on to their tickets for all of these postponed shows that we're doing. It's it's deeply moving. Mm.
I find when I
to feel the community.
Yeah,
that, what I mean?
When we hosted our last London event, a girl came over to me and she said, I'm here for KupoCon. I said, that's nice. I said, I noticed you have a unique accent. Where are you from? And she's like, I'm from the United Arab Emirates. And I'm like, oh, so you must be here on a trip? She's like, no, I came for KupoCon. And I'm like, wow, And when I found out that you guys were performing at the Royal Albert Hall, I think it was 2 years ago, I just booked a flight here from Canada and flew over. And I was like, we're doing it. So, and it was great. It was a fantastic experience.
That's wonderful, Alex. I mean, I know so many people who have traveled for concerts, mm-hmm. And if there's anything that that this opportunity of stillness has brought me, it's even more appreciation for the experiences that we've shared together.
Mm-hmm. You can really reflect on the experiences that you've had.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now,
that's exactly right.
Doing these concerts, you're talking about the interaction with fans and that, and not just that, you've had the opportunity to work with some really talented people. Arnie, of course, wouldn't leave him out. Don't want to get slapped. But you've also had the opportunity to work with Benjamin. I know he's a good friend of yours.
Yes.
And I think you've done some work with Susan Calloway, and yes. You've met, composers and orchestrators from across the entire series, people like Nobuo Uematsu. I'm curious, are you almost starstruck when you meet these people? Are you in awe of their talent? Because I know as a fan, like when I met Nobu, it was at New Jersey, and Arnie called me and said, "Look, come back," and I went backstage, and I have, of anyone I've ever met, meeting Nobu was a massive highlight for me. Are you in awe of the talent that you come across when you're working on these concerts?
The simple answer is yes.
Yeah.
Right. The simple answer is yes, but I'm also working with them in a way, so there's a lot of enrichment that comes from that also. That's something that I've reflected on recently also, is just like these moments of sharing with Uematsu-san, like listening to a Distant Worlds orchestra in sound check and like actually talking about that for a minute. And like, you learn things this way, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's so I feel very lucky, very fortunate to have had these incredible experiences.
Now, if we just
with these legends,
yeah. If we hardcore rewind, and I mean really rewind, do your musical talents and interests stem from Arnie, or is it just something that just because you grew up around it, that it was something that you got into, or is it just something that you chose to grow into?
I don't remember when it wasn't a big part of my life. You know what I mean? It's just, and I think it would be foolish for me not to acknowledge that having a professional musician for a father, when I was, from when I was born, and
quite talented at that.
And being surrounded. He was a professional violinist back then.
And that's exactly what I was going to mention. I did not know that. And at Palais Montcalm, he performed a piece from 13, popped out the violin, and I was like, what's he doing? And I did not expect that. And it was amazing just to hear him do a solo, the whole thing.
Right. He's a bad man. He's a brilliant musician and a legend in this business. And I feel very fortunate that I've been able to be a little part of it. You know what I mean?
Well, you're more than a little part. Give yourself credit. You're a big part.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's very nice. So tell me about your specialties within music. From an instrument perspective, you play piano, is that right?
Not publicly,
okay.
but my back when I was a younger person, I was a professional like drummer and percussionist.
Okay.
I would also work singing, believe it or not.
Right.
And that when I was an instrumentalist, that was how I would perform.
You got the rhythm. You got the rhythm running through your heartbeat.
That's right.
Yeah.
I came up as a drummer.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and now we have these incredible concerts that take place all over the world. Tell me, of all the places you've been, are there any that really stand out to you? Not necessarily because of the concert specifically, just maybe the place that you've been to. Are there any places that you're just, I know when you're stood in the Royal Albert Hall, it's just like, oh my God, it's just such a stunning building with so much architecture and history. Are there any places that you've been and you just, you still, even when you go there again, you just can't believe it?
Yes. I do have some like favorite places that I've been, like going to Aotearoa, right, to New Zealand has been like an amazing thing for me. I've gotten to perform there and actually visited there more than once. That's been really amazing. I think Melbourne Recital Hall, when we talk to like venues, like is a really cool venue. It's like I've performed there a few times now, and it's just a really special place. I think that there, then I can talk about like a lot of other places. Like as far as experiences, I had an unbelievable experience performing in Kuwait right?
Wow.
With Benny, and Hamauzu-san was there with us. I mean, that was incredible. I mean, not the venue, but the
experience, yeah.
But the experience,
Yep.
you know. And I mean, there've been so. I mean, I'm so grateful for the joy and sharing and experiences that I've had through Final Fantasy music.
Mm-hmm.
It's only possible because of this incredible community of people who love this music.
Yeah.
And I just, you know, I sit here in gratitude.
I'm curious, you know, when you're working on a new world, can it be quite challenging to orchestrate the ensemble for some songs? Because obviously, you know, you have the bass song, you have how it was originally written, but I know that I imagine there has to be a lot of adaptation to make it work. How does that come about? Like, how do you go about selecting the songs that you work on and then breaking it down and putting it together? Because, you know, some of the original songs, and I recognize that even games like Final Fantasy VI, 7, even though it was using MIDI, there were still instruments, you know, in mind of what was going to be played out, but still, it's not the same as bringing it to sheet music, right? So
that's a big process for time, right? But the selection process you talked about, like how does repertoire get added to the you know, to the production. It's a really collaborative process. You know, we talk with the composers, we talk with our wonderful partners at Square, and you know, it's something that we arrive at together. You know, where the idea originates can be from different places. I'll just put it that way. But typically there are different criteria involved, like what games are we lacking repertoire from, you know, or what mood do we need more of, or you know what I mean, or do we feel like we're missing, you know, these kind of things. I'm trying to be kind of fast and loose with this.
That's good.
So moving on from the selection, that's the basic kind of thing that happens.
Right.
As far as how to translate it, but it's a really exquisite problem because the different games and eras are such different sound palettes and vocabularies. Even is it easier with the newer games? Is it easier to translate because of the way they've been produced, or is it really not? I could see how it might seem like that because it's more like representative of acoustic instruments sometimes and things like that. But I don't find that easier. I just find that a different set of problems. You know what I mean? Like or challenges. You know, not problems. But you know what I'm saying? When it's a synthetic sound, you know, that I think we associate with some of the earlier games, there's a different kind of range of possibility of how you might interpret that for the acoustic world and the set of instruments you're working with than like when you hear something that's definitely supposed to be a shakuhachi. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so that's, you know, like from 14, you know, or something like that, you know, so that's, these are different kinds of problems.
I imagine the tempo in some cases must be rather frustrating too. Like there's a couple of songs I think in 6, 7, 8 that have very fast tempo. And I always enjoy when I see it on the set list and I'm like, my God, how are they going to do that? You know, because the beat for it's just ridiculous. And I can't imagine someone having to replicate it. But I've always enjoyed almost the reimagining of a song. Like you'll slow the tempo down so it's not going to give someone a heart attack, you know, and you'll just resculpt it, still completely recognizable, but it's completely got its own feel, you know.
Yeah, well, thank you, Alex. I mean, it's a very what am I looking for? It's not a science, right? It's like
it's an art form.
And every night is going to be different, right? You're working with different sets of musicians, and you know, people are feeling differently at different levels of preparedness, even sometimes. And you know, it's So there's a lot of stuff at play, and it's living music. It's exciting to bring the richness of the experiences that people have with this music before I ever touch it to the concert stage,
right.
and we like share it together as living, vibrating air molecules. It's
gotcha.
like it's overwhelming.
I can imagine. We actually have quite a few questions from viewers, so I'm just going to throw some things at you.
Throw away.
And excuse me. And if you have an answer, then throw it back at me.
I'll do my best.
Great. So we have a question here from Lucretia. She asks, what got you involved in Final Fantasy and why? I would assume it was Distant Worlds that then led to A New World. But what led to Distant Worlds? Do you know how that came around? I
do. Distant Worlds, because even though I wasn't like fully involved at that point, I would say I was partly involved at that point with productions that preceded Distant Worlds, things like Play, a video game symphony, and More Friends, Dear Friends, these things, which were featured the Shiro Hamaguchi orchestrations and arrangements, which are so wonderful. For I know people know them. This is the template, the high water mark. Great stuff. So my father Arnie came into this relationship through conducting this music. And this is the simplified version. And Distant Worlds grew out of that relationship.
Right.
The idea of this idea was largely pushed by Uematsu-san, as I recall and understand it, which was wanting to have a touring production, not just something for some events, but something that could live in a lot of different cities around the world. Mm-hmm. And so Distant Worlds grew out of that. I was working on that in, like music preparation kind of way until like my main first orchestration arrangement was Geneva from the second album with Distant Worlds. And then there have been, a bunch of other ones since then. And, the vast majority of the New World arrangements. And,
quite the process.
That's the short version.
It's really incredible when you think about it. How Nobu probably turning around and going, "Yeah, we should do a live concert, and it should tour." And then suddenly, now here we are. Mental.
Well, I mean, it's again, I say it all the time, but that's only possible because everybody in this community wants it to happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
That's the only way it happens.
The fandom,
we can't declare it.
The fandom of Final Fantasy is absolutely unique, for sure. Yeah. I have a question here from Tabitha. She says, you have a beautiful way of directing the orchestra. So how do you get into the mindset of performing? Is there anything you do before?
Tabitha, that's very touching. Thank you for saying that. How do I get in the thank you, really. How do I get in the mindset for performing?
Say a quick shot of whiskey and bang on stage and off you go.
No. That seems like a bad idea for me.
Okay.
It's like one of the greatest joys I've ever had in my life, and so, it's my privilege to give it everything I have. And it doesn't take a lot for me to get in that mindset. Mm-hmm. It's really that simple for me. I got to be honest.
Gotcha. I've got a question here from Linda. She says, if you could pick any music hall to perform in, and she said depending on acoustics, but in general, if there is anywhere that you could perform that you haven't already performed, is there anywhere that you'd like to?
There are so many places I'd like to. There are so many beautiful halls in this world. I mean, I can just think of any European city, and there's a beautiful concert hall, So I mean, and I've performed in a couple. I mean, like we performed at this hall at the Brussels Conservatory that was like 17th century vibe. Like, I mean, maybe it was 18th century, and I'm remembering wrong, but
it was old.
Forgive me. It was. I mean. These exist all over the place. I want to perform in so many of them.
Do you find that the acoustics is more important for a new world? Like with Distant Worlds, obviously, it's very grand, but I imagine with the intimacy of a new world, acoustics is probably really important, right?
Well, they're important for either. They're just different sets of acoustical priorities and things like that. But for a new world, yes, we try to live and perform acoustically, like without sound reinforcement whenever possible. And it's a really delicate thing, delicate music sometimes. So the acoustic can really be a huge factor in the experience.
We had one final question here. Came in from Alan asking if you have any specific pieces that you're just a huge fan of. It's like you love to have that play, or anything that really stands out between everything you've done.
Well, I'll narrow it down just to keep it easy on me. From a New World repertoire, because I've been preparing some of that to get ready for this live stream performance we're doing on November 20th with the Grand Rapids Symphony. And I've been, I've had a little break, unexpected break away from, keeping prepared with all these scores, and it's like it's so great to have fresh eyes in some ways and ears. And Danger in the Forest has been a really special experience for me preparing that one lately. So I'll mention that one right now. Gotcha. Danger in the Forest from that.
Well, you've hit the nail on the head with which was going to be my next point, was the live stream that's coming up on the 20th of November. Tell us a little bit about what to expect.
I'm happy to. Thank you. The Grand Rapids Symphony, they're a terrific group, and we're doing this live stream performance in an arena, so it's spaced out and physically. I mean, the musicians will be spaced out from one another, and there's more ventilation and thorough testing protocol, and we're going to give everything we have to bring a great performance that we can share via live stream on the 20th. And I'm finding some great happiness in preparing for this process.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, I mean, it's not quite the same, but it's an ounce of goodness,
That's right.
And something to look forward to.
It's something. There's joy to be had.
Yeah,
I'll put
for
it
sure.
that way.
I think it's certainly a lot of people, and I'm sure you feel this more than many at the moment, is that there's a certain appreciation for how many liberties we had, how free our lives were, the ability to perform in front of large crowds, and that seems like such an unrealistic thing right now. So it's tough for sure. But no, I encourage everyone to check out this stream. You can find the details over on the New World website, which is ffnewworld.com. Also, just to plug something else that I saw recently, you guys have put together a beautiful Christmas box set, which has all the Distant Worlds albums in. That's available on the Distant Worlds website, I believe. So that's certainly worth checking out. And there's lots of CDs that they can check out on your website too. I think you recently set up a store not that long ago. I saw through a few tweets. So people can definitely find your content, and a lot of it streams too. I'm a huge fan of everything that I have. I just want to say I really appreciate you joining me today, and chatting with me and talking about really what goes on behind A New World. It's very interesting to hear it.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a real pleasure.
I do hope.
Thank you for mentioning all those things about the holiday box and what we have going on right now.
No, it's all good. I mean, you're a huge portion of the community. I'm very thankful for the concerts. They're wonderful. There's been many a concert I've been to where I will openly admit I've got a bit teary-eyed. It's very overwhelming to hear the music live. What you guys do is an absolute art form. I know that there was discussion between us at some point, I think it was last year, where we were trying to see if we could coincide a KupoCon in line with a New World. And, one day, hopefully we can do that, because that would be wonderful. You're incredibly talented, and yes, it's been absolutely great to talk with you.
Thank you, Alex. Those are very generous and moving words. I really appreciate that. And I look forward to sharing more great experiences together. I mean, I really do.
Well, we'll start with a pint, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah.
Pint of cider is my pick. What's your pick?
That sounds perfect.
That work? Well, that's where we will begin. Okay, folks. Eric, just stay with me for just 1 second. Folks, I'm just going to say my goodbyes to Eric, and I'll be back shortly with Hedy Barres, who's the voice of Yuna in Final Fantasy X.